When I was young, I worked hard, long hours, early mornings, late nights, but at 25 I was still broke. Why? Because I was spending major time on minor things. And unless you change that, all the energy in the world won't rescue you. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to stop wasting your life on the trivial and start focusing on what truly multiplies your success. You'll learn how to separate what looks urgent from what's really important. I'll show you why most people never rise above survival and how you can. And if you'll stay with me, I'll give you the tools to take the same hours you already have and make them pay you a fortune instead of just a wage. Now, I know the frustration. You're busy, you're moving, you've got lists, schedules, alarms, reminders, yet deep down you still feel behind. It seems like no matter how much you do, it never adds up to the life you want. And maybe you've wondered if success is only for the lucky few. Let me assure you, it isn't luck, it's focus. Most people are paying a high price for majoring in minor things. But once you see the difference, once you discipline your time, everything changes. So here's what we're going to cover. First, I'll show you how to recognize the minor things that steal your time and your fortune. Then I'll explain how to identify the few major things that create real wealth, real progress, and real happiness. We'll talk about why most people stay trapped in the small circle of activity and how you can step into the larger circle of achievement. Along the way, I'll share the exact principles that turned my life around at 25 when I was broke, embarrassed, and out of answers. And before we're finished, I'll give you one challenge, simple, practical, but powerful, that if you take it, could mark the turning point in your own life. Here's something most people completely miss. Being busy is not the same as being successful. You can fill your calendar. You can check every box on your list. You can even fall into bed exhausted every night and still wake up broke, behind, and frustrated. I know because I did it. For years, I worked long hours. I put in the effort. I showed up early and stayed late. And yet, at 25, I couldn't even buy a $2 box of Girl Scout cookies. Imagine that. A little girl came to my door, big brown eyes, box in hand, and she gave me the best sales pitch you could ever hear. I wanted to buy, but I didn't have the money. I lied to her and said, "We've already got all the cookies we need." That was the day I knew something had to change. Not because I wasn't working hard, but because all my effort was trapped in the minor things. See, the real tragedy is not when people don't try. The tragedy is when they mistake movement for progress. A person can run fast in the wrong direction and still end up lost. A farmer can spend all day rearranging tools in the barn but never plant seed in the field, and at the end of the season, the harvest doesn't care how busy he was. The harvest only comes to the one who planted and cultivated and watered. Effort matters, yes, but only when effort is tied to achievement. Now, let me ask you something. Have you ever had a day where you were busy from morning till night, and yet when you lay down, you wondered what you actually accomplished? That's the trap. Because busyness can feel like progress. The phone is ringing, the inbox is full, people want your attention. It all feels important. But here's the question that changed my life. Busy doing what? Busy running where? Because hours and effort by themselves don't guarantee a better life. Only results do. And here's the shift I had to make. I had to stop counting the hours and start counting the results. It's not how long you work, it's what you produce in the time you work. That was a painful lesson for me. For too many years, I thought working harder was the answer. But I discovered the truth. It's not harder, it's smarter. It's not activity, it's direction. A 10-hour day can keep you broke if it's spent on the wrong things, and a focused 1-hour block can set you on the path to fortune if it's spent on the majors. So let me put it in simple words. Don't mistake activity for achievement. Don't let a full calendar hide an empty future. Remember, results are the name of the game. The measure of success is not hours worked, but value produced. That's the dividing line between the busy man who stays broke and the focused man who builds a fortune. Now, if busyness is a trap, the next question is, why do so many people fall into it? That's what I want to show you next. Because once you see why we choose the minors over the majors, you'll start to recognize the invisible chains holding you back. And once you see the chains, you can break them. Now, why do so many people fall into this trap of busyness? Why do intelligent, ambitious men and women with dreams and potential spend major time on minor things? The answer, my friend, is simple but not easy. Because minor things are comfortable and major things are demanding. It's always easier to do what feels urgent than to do what truly matters. It's easier to answer the ringing phone than to sit down and map out a plan for your life. It's easier to scroll through distractions, to shuffle papers, to handle a dozen tiny errands than it is to face the discipline of building a new skill, reading a difficult book, or starting the project that could change your future. And here's the problem. What is easy to do is also easy not to do. That's the psychology of the small things. See, the small things whisper to us, this won't take long, just 5 minutes, and then another 5, and another, and soon the day is gone. But the majors, the important things, they never shout. They sit quietly, waiting for you to choose them. They demand more of you, more thought, more courage, more discipline. And that's why so few people pick them. People would rather do what is urgent than what is important, because urgent things scream at you while important things whisper. The squeaky wheel gets the oil, but sometimes it's the silent engine that needs the most care. And if we're not careful, the small things don't just steal ours, they steal our destiny. Think about it. You can check your email 50 times in a day, but never write the one proposal that could change your income. You can clean your desk 100 times, but never design the future that'll put money in that desk drawer. You can spend all your energy keeping the sand smooth in the jar, but never put in the rocks that matter most. Remember the classic time management lesson, if you fill the jar with sand first, there's no room for the big rocks. But if you put the big rocks in first, the sand always finds its place. That's not just a story about jars. It's a story about life. Fill your hours with the majors, and the minors will always fit around them. Fill your hours with minors, and the majors never get in. Here's the truth that hit me like a hammer one day. The pain of discipline weighs ounces, but the pain of regret weighs tons. Discipline asks you to give up a little comfort today, but regret takes away whole years tomorrow. Discipline costs you an evening of study, but regret costs you a lifetime of wishing. Discipline asks for small sacrifices in the present, but regret demands a heavy price in the future. I used to think the price of discipline was too high, but then I realized the price of regret was unbearable. And the choice is always mine. It's always yours. Now let me ask you, have you ever noticed how easy it is to do the wrong thing? It's easy to watch television. It's easy to waste an hour. It's easy to spend money on something that doesn't matter. Easy to do. But here's the catch, easy not to do. Easy to turn off the TV, easy to open a book, easy to put the money in a savings account. The problem isn't difficulty. The problem is neglect. And neglect has a snowball effect. Neglect it one day, and it doesn't seem to matter. Neglect it 2 days, 3 days, and you hardly notice. Neglect it a year, and suddenly you're broke, behind, and wondering where the time went. That's the psychology of small things. So here's the lesson. Don't get caught in the comfort of the minor. Don't trade what you want most for what's easy now. Don't spend another season planting weeds and expect a harvest of wheat. The small things will always call your name, but if you give them your life, they'll rob you of your future. The majors are harder, but they're worth it. That's the only way to change the direction of your life. So if the small things keep us busy, the real question becomes, what are the big things, the majors, that we should be giving our time and attention to? That's where I want to take you next, because once you identify the majors, you'll never see your time the same way again. Now here's something I discovered. Most people don't give their lives away by one great tragedy. They give it away 5 minutes at a time. It isn't the one big mistake that ruins them. It's the small choices, the minor things, repeated day after day, that quietly rob them of fortune, happiness, and the life they could have lived. You see, minor things are seductive. They look easy. They feel comfortable. They whisper to you, do this first, it won't cost much. And that's the trap. The majors will stretch you. The majors will demand discipline. The majors will force you to grow. But the minors will let you stay the same. And people love to stay the same, even if the same is miserable. Why do we choose them? Because the majors weigh ounces of discipline now, but the minors hide the tons of regret later. I've often said, the pain of discipline weighs ounces, but the pain of regret weighs tons. And most people, faced with the choice, pick the ounce today and the ton tomorrow. They check their phone 50 times, but never pick up the courage to make one sales call. They fill their day with errands, chores, entertainment, things that give the illusion of progress, but when the sun sets, Nothing important has been moved forward. And that's how you can be busy for a decade and broke at the end of it. Let me give you an example. Imagine a man with a jar. In front of him are rocks, pebbles, and sand. If he fills the jar with sand first, the rocks will never fit. But if he puts the rocks in first, then the pebbles, then the sand, suddenly everything fits in perfect order. Life is the same way. Most people fill their jar with sand, social media, gossip, television, endless distraction, and then complain that there's no room for the majors, like study, skill, health, wealth, relationships. Of course there's no room. You used it up on what didn't matter. And here's the bitter irony. People defend their minors with all the passion in the world. Ask them, why didn't you write your goals? And they'll say, well, I had to clean the garage. Or, I was busy answering emails. Or, I just needed to relax for a while. And all the while, the clock ticks, the years pass, and the majors slip away. One day they wake up, and it's not just a garage they cleaned, it's a life they wasted. That's why I challenge people. Pay attention to what feels urgent but isn't important. Your phone buzzing isn't important. That television show isn't important. But writing down your goals, reading a book, making that call, building that skill, those are majors. And here's the truth. If you don't discipline yourself to the majors, the minors will discipline you by default. They will steal your time, drain your energy, and leave you wondering where the years went. So let me ask you, what's your sand? What are the minor things that have been stealing your major time? And more importantly, when will you decide to stop letting them? Because until you do, no amount of work will change your direction. Here's what changed everything for me. I discovered that not all things are created equal. Some things matter a little, and some things matter a lot. And if you spend your life confusing the two, you'll work hard and end up disappointed. But if you ever learn to separate the minors from the majors and give major time to major things, your life begins to multiply. That was my turning point. At 25, I was broke, embarrassed, and wondering why all my hard work wasn't paying off. I thought effort was the secret. But then I learned it wasn't just effort, it was direction. And direction comes from choosing the majors. So what are the majors? Let me tell you. The majors are the few things that multiply your future. They're the things that, if you invest in them, will pay you for the rest of your life. Number one is your philosophy. How you think, how you see the world, how you interpret events, how you decide what's valuable, that's the cornerstone. Because if you've got the wrong philosophy, even hard work won't save you. You'll keep making wrong decisions, keep feeding the wrong habits, and keep wondering why the results don't change. But change your philosophy, and suddenly everything else starts to shift. You see, income rarely exceeds personal development. And the only way to raise your income permanently is to raise the way you think. Number two is your skills. You've got to learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Why? Because jobs can change, industries can change, economies can collapse, but if you've got skills, if you've got the ability to produce, to create, to sell, to persuade, to think, to solve problems, you'll never be out of work. You'll never be out of opportunity. It's not what you get that makes you valuable, it's what you become. That's why you've got to give time every day to learning. Read the books. Listen to the tapes. Study the people who've succeeded. Learn their language, their disciplines, their habits. That's major. Number three is your relationships. Who you spend time with matters more than almost anything else. The wrong crowd can waste your time, waste your money, waste your reputation, but the right crowd can pull you up, push you forward, and keep you accountable. One of the greatest lessons I ever learned is that you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And let me tell you, when I looked around at 25, I didn't like the average. That's when I started looking for people who would stretch me, challenge me, force me to grow. Because the majors aren't just about what you do, they're about who you become. And who you become is shaped by who you're with. And number 4 is your goals, your vision. What do you want your life to look like 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? If you don't design your own life, someone else will design it for you. And guess what they've got planned for you? Not much. That's why your goals have to be clear, written, alive. Because a man without goals is like a ship without a rudder, caught by every current, blown by every wind, and surprised when he crashes on the rocks. But with goals, you've got direction. You've got a reason to get up early, to stay up late, to discipline yourself to the majors. Now, let me pause and ask you a question. What are your majors? What are the things in your life that, if you invested in them every day, would multiply your results 10 times, 100 times? Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's your finances. Maybe it's your skills. Maybe it's your family. Whatever it is, write it down. Don't trust it to memory. Don't say, I'll think about tomorrow. No, write it tonight. Because if you don't define your majors, the minors will take over. And once the minors take over, the majors never get in. Here's the truth that changed my life. The majors will make you rich. The minors will keep you broke. The majors will make you valuable. The minors will waste you. The majors will open up freedom. The minors will trap you. And you've only got one life. Don't give it away to what doesn't matter. But here's the caution. Even once you know what the majors are, it's not automatic. Just knowing them doesn't mean you'll live them. Because the minors never stop calling your name. That's why you've got to do something else. You've got to learn how to protect your majors. And that's where I want to take you next. Now, here's the truth I had to face. It's one thing to know the majors. It's another thing to actually live them. You can sit in a seminar, nod your head, take notes, and say, yes, Jim, I see it. I'll give my time to philosophy, to skills, to goals, to relationships. But tomorrow morning, the phone will ring, the emails will pile up, somebody will knock on the door, and before you know it, the minors will sneak back in and crowd the majors right out of your life. Knowing is easy. Protecting is the hard part. Because the minors never rest. They never stop asking for your attention. And unless you learn to guard your time and your energy, you'll spend your days saying yes to everything and end up with nothing. I had to learn this the hard way. For too many years, I was the man who couldn't say no. If you asked me for a meeting, I said yes. If you needed a favor, I said yes. If there was a distraction, I followed it. And I thought I was being helpful, generous, easygoing. But you know what I was being? Broke. Because every time I said yes to a minor, I was saying no to a major. Every time I gave away an hour to something that didn't matter, I was stealing it from something that did. And I realized one day that my problem wasn't lack of effort, it was lack of boundaries. I wasn't guarding my time, so the minors were robbing me blind. Here's what I finally understood. You can't let everyone else's urgency become your agenda. Somebody's always got something for you to do. But the question is, does it fit into your design, or does it just fit into theirs? See, most people don't have much of a plan for you. At best, they'll use your time to build their dreams. At worst, they'll waste it altogether. So you've got to get serious about guarding your schedule, your energy, your attention. Learn the power of no. No to the trivial. No to the wasteful. No to the distractions that look shiny but leave you empty. Every yes to the minor is a no to the major. And you can't afford to keep saying no to your own future. And let's talk about energy. Because it's not just about guarding the hours, it's about guarding the strength you bring to those hours. If you give all your energy to fighting little fires, what will you have left for the real building projects of your life? If you waste your mornings on nonsense, what energy will you have left for the majors in the afternoon? That's why I tell people, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Protect it like treasure. Because the majors require your best. They require focus. They require clarity. They require creativity. You can't give them leftovers. You can't give them scraps. And here's another lesson I learned from my mentor. Your environment matters. Who you spend time with will either drain you or charge you. Associations are powerful. Spend your days with people who major in minors, and you'll end up doing the same. But surround yourself with people who are chasing majors, who are disciplined, who are serious, who are focused, and their energy will rub off on you. You can't escape it. We all become the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. So check your average. Look at your circle. If you don't like the direction they're going, you'd better get yourself a new circle. Because if you want to guard your majors, you've got to guard your associations. So let me ask you a question. Who's stealing your time? Who's draining your energy? What meetings, what conversations, what habits are eating away at your majors? Be honest with yourself. Because until you recognize the thieves, you can't lock the door. And until you lock the door, the miners will keep walking right in day after day and stealing the life you could have lived. That's why I tell people, set priorities, make choices, draw boundaries, guard the majors like your fortune depends on it, because it does. Guard them like your happiness depends on it, because it does. Don't let the minors run your life. Don't let the trivial rob you of the treasure. If you'll learn this one discipline, the discipline of guarding your time and energy, you'll separate yourself from 90% of the crowd. Now, once you've identified the majors and you've learned to protect them, the next question is, what happens when you actually begin to invest in them? What happens when you sow your time, your energy, your resources into the majors instead of the minors? That's what I want to show you next. Because life runs on a law, the law of sowing and reaping, and once you understand it, you'll never look at your daily disciplines the same way again. Here's the great law of life, the one that governs the harvest of every man and woman. You reap what you sow. You don't reap what you need. You don't reap what you wish. You don't reap what you talk about. You reap what you sow. That law has been in place since the beginning of time, and it's not about to change for me. It's not about to change for you. And here's the hard truth. Most people are sowing the wrong seeds in the wrong fields and then complaining that life isn't fair. But life isn't unfair. Life is exact. Life delivers back to you exactly what you plant. If you plant weeds, you get weeds. If you plant corn, you get corn. That's not judgment. That's not punishment. That's just the way the law works. Now, the tragedy is this. Most people spend their days sowing minors, and then they wonder why their harvest is small. They spend their energy on gossip, on distraction, on shortcuts, on entertainment. They fill their calendar with trivial work, busy work, nonsense. And then they stand in the field at harvest time and ask, why is there nothing here? Why do I have so little? The answer's simple. You planted little. You gave your hours to sand, not to rocks. You gave your days to what doesn't matter, and life gave you back exactly what you asked for. You can't reap success from a field of neglect. You can't reap wealth from a field of waste. You can't reap happiness from a field of indifference. You reap what you sow. When I was 25, I had to look in the mirror and face this. I wasn't unlucky. I wasn't cursed. I wasn't cheated. I was simply reaping what I had sown. I had sown too many empty hours, too many careless choices, too many wasted days, and life paid me back in exactly the right measure, broke, embarrassed, and behind on my promises. That was the law at work. And let me tell you, the law doesn't play favorites. It works the same for me, for you, for the rich, for the poor, for the educated, for the uneducated. The law is no respecter of persons. It simply delivers the harvest of what you plant. So the question becomes, what are you sowing? Every day you're in the field. Every choice is a seed. Every action is planting something. The hours you give to reading, to study, to discipline, those are seeds of wealth, seeds of wisdom, seeds of freedom. The hours you give to neglect, to distraction, to laziness, those are seeds of poverty, seeds of regret, seeds of bondage. The law doesn't ask what you meant to plant. It doesn't ask what you wished you planted. It just grows what you gave it. That's why I tell people, never let a day go by without planting something of value. Never let a season pass without sowing majors. Because one thing's for certain, harvest time always comes. And here's another part of the law. You don't just reap what you sow, you reap later. That's what makes this so tricky. If the harvest came tomorrow, we'd be more careful. But it doesn't. You can waste a day and not feel the loss. You can skip a discipline and nothing falls apart instantly. You can neglect your health for a week and still feel fine. You can avoid saving money for a month and not feel broke. But wait a few years, wait a few seasons, and suddenly the bill comes due. That's when the weeds take over. That's when the body breaks down. That's when the bank account runs dry. Neglect today compounds into regret tomorrow. The law doesn't forget. It simply waits. So don't be fooled by the delay. The farmer who plants corn in April doesn't eat in April. He waits for the season to do its work, and when the season is right, the harvest comes. That's why you've got to sow now, even when there's no instant reward. Sow now and trust the law. Sow now and let the season work for you. Because one day, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next month, but one day the harvest will come. And when it comes, you'll either be proud you sowed or you'll regret that you didn't. Now, the next truth about this law is even more sobering. You don't just reap later, you reap more than you sow. And that's where the real danger and the real opportunity comes in. That's what I want to show you next. Because if one small seed can produce a multiplied harvest, then one small choice, for good or for bad, can change everything. Now, here's what makes this law so powerful and so dangerous. You don't just reap what you sow, and you don't just reap later. You reap more than you sowed, more than you imagined, more than you thought possible. One small seed in the ground can produce a stalk, and that stalk holds many kernels, and each kernel holds the potential for more stalks, and each stalk carries more kernels. That's the multiplying effect. That's the great promise and the great warning. Because if you sow wisely, life multiplies your reward, and if you sow foolishly, life multiplies your regret. Think about it this way. Every day you practice a small discipline, reading 10 pages of a good book, listening to a wise teacher, writing in a journal, making one important phone call. It doesn't seem like much. It seems almost trivial. But give it 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, give it a year. Suddenly, what seems small at the start has compounded into a skill, a reputation, a body of knowledge, an account full of value, and here's the beauty: once momentum builds, it begins to feed itself. Discipline attracts opportunity. Skills attract reward. Effort attracts recognition. That's the multiplying effect working in your favor. But here's the warning side. Neglect works the same way. One day of skipping the book, one day of ignoring the call, one day of wasting the hour, no big deal. Nothing crashes. Nothing breaks. You escape the consequence in the moment. But stack those days together. Let them run in sequence. And neglect begins to multiply just as surely as discipline. A few errors in judgment repeated every day will destroy your future just as powerfully as a few disciplines practiced every day will build it. That's the sobering truth. You can drift into failure just as easily as you can discipline yourself into success. And the worst part, failure is subtle. It doesn't announce itself. It creeps in quietly, multiplying in the shadows, until one day you look around and realize the years are gone, the chances are gone, and the harvest is nothing but weeds. That's why I tell people, don't spend major money on minor things. Don't keep sowing sand and expecting to reap gold. Every dollar you spend, every hour you invest, every relationship you nurture is a seed, and that seed will multiply. The question is, will it multiply into something you want or something you dread? I know men who spend more on candy than they do on books, and then they wonder why their mind is weak and their fortune is small. I know people who give more time to gossip than to growth, and then they wonder why their influence shrinks. The law doesn't ask what you meant to do. It just multiplies what you actually did. So ask yourself, what am I sowing that I want more of? What am I sowing that I'd better stop before it multiplies into a life I don't want? Because the law of sowing and reaping is never neutral. It's always working, always multiplying, always building or destroying, depending on what you plant. And the exciting part is, you can change it any time. One new seed today, one new discipline today, one new choice today, and the multiplying effect begins to work in your favor. So remember this, you can't change the past harvest, but you can change the next one. If the field is full of weeds, stop cursing the weeds and start planting new seed. Don't wait for a miracle. Don't wait for luck. Don't wait for someone else to fix it. The law is clear. You reap what you sow, later than you sow, and more than you sow. And that law, once you embrace it, can turn your entire life around. And that brings me to the next step. Because even once you know this law, even once you feel its weight, there's still one bridge you must cross. Knowledge by itself won't get you there. Understanding won't get you there. The bridge between knowing and having, between goals and accomplishment, between sowing and reaping, that bridge is called discipline. And that's where we're headed next. Here's the truth I finally had to learn. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. It's the link, the missing piece, the deciding factor. You can have dreams, you can have plans, you can have goals written in beautiful ink on fine paper, but without discipline they remain nothing more than wishes. And life does not reward wishes. Life rewards discipline. Discipline is the glue that binds inspiration to achievement, the cement that turns imagination into reality. Without it, the majors never get planted, the seeds never get watered, and the harvest never comes. When I was younger, I had plenty of goals. I had promises I made to my family, promises I made to myself. I told my wife we were going to have the good life, the cars, the house, the security. I told myself I would be successful, that I would live a life worth remembering. But for years it was all talk. My goals were nothing but empty words. Because while I had the goals, I didn't have the discipline. And here's what I found out. Without discipline, even majors turn into minors. Even great intentions shrink down into wasted time. Even dreams, without discipline, rot into regret. Now the question is, why do so many people resist discipline? Because discipline always asks for a price in the present. It asks you to pay today so you can enjoy tomorrow. And most people would rather spend today and let tomorrow take care of itself. But here's what I know. The price of discipline is always small compared to the price of regret. Discipline weighs ounces. Regret weighs tons. Discipline asks you to read the book instead of watch the television, to make the call instead of delay it, to save the dollar instead of spend it. Small weights, manageable weights. But regret asks you to carry the burden of years wasted, opportunities lost, relationships neglected, fortunes missed, and that weight is unbearable. Let me give you a picture. Imagine two men. One chooses to discipline himself, to get up a little earlier, to learn a little more, to save a little extra, to take care of his health. The other man chooses neglect. He sleeps in, he skips the reading, he spends instead of saves, he eats whatever he wants. Day by day, the difference is hardly noticeable. But give it a year, give it 5 years, give it 10. Suddenly, the first man has built a life of strength, health, wealth, and freedom, while the second man is trapped in weakness, sickness, debt, and regret. The difference isn't luck. The difference is discipline. That's why I tell people, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for fewer problems, wish for more skills. Don't wish for less challenge, wish for more wisdom. Because discipline makes you better, gives you skills, builds your wisdom. Discipline doesn't take away the challenge, it makes you strong enough to face it. Discipline doesn't remove the problems, it makes you resourceful enough to solve them. And when you build discipline, you don't just cross the bridge once, you carry the bridge with you. Everywhere you go, every dream you have, every goal you set, discipline is the bridge that will carry you across. Now let me ask you something. What's the one discipline you've been avoiding? What's the one bridge you keep walking up to and then turning away? Because until you face that, until you step onto that bridge, your goals will remain on the other side, taunting you, reminding you of what could have been. But the moment you step on, the moment you pay the small price of discipline, you'll feel the power shift. You'll feel the distance between you and your dreams getting smaller, step by disciplined step. And here's the good news. Discipline, like every skill, can be learned. It starts small. One new habit today, one better choice today, and soon disciplines multiply just like neglect multiplies. Every new discipline strengthens the others. Start reading today, and suddenly you eat better. Start saving today, and suddenly you work harder. Start exercising today, and suddenly you think clearer. Discipline attracts discipline. And before long, your whole life begins to change, not by magic, not by luck, but by the steady compounding of simple disciplines practiced every day. So remember, goals don't work unless you do. Dreams don't come true unless you discipline yourself to build them. It's discipline that turns someday into today, that turns plans into progress, that turns potential into performance. And the exciting part is, you can begin now. You don't need permission. You don't need perfect conditions. You just need the decision to start. But here's what's even bigger. Discipline doesn't just help you build a living, it helps you build a life. And that's what I want to show you next. Because if all you do is make a living, you may survive. But if you learn how to design a life, you can thrive. Let's talk about that. Here's what I finally discovered. It's not enough to just make a living. You can work hard all your life. You can bring home a paycheck every week. You can pay the bills, keep the lights on, and still end up with nothing to show for it but tired bones and faded dreams. Making a living is necessary, yes, but it's not the goal. The goal is to design a life. A living will keep you fed, but a life will keep you fulfilled. A living will buy you bread, but a life will let you feast on meaning, on purpose, on happiness. Too many people spend their whole lives trading their hours for dollars and never take the time to ask, what kind of life do I want these dollars to build? That's the tragedy. They climb the ladder, only to find it's leaning against the wrong wall. So here's the question I had to ask myself at 25. What do I want my life to look like? Not just my job, not just my bank account, but my whole life. Where do I want to live? Who do I want to be with? What do I want to see, to learn, to give, to create? What do I want to leave behind when I'm gone? Because if you don't ask those questions, someone else will answer them for you. And here's the sobering truth. If you don't design your own life, chances are you'll end up as a part of someone else's design. And do you know what they've got planned for you? Not much. That's why you've got to take the challenge of designing it yourself. Now, what does it mean to design a life? It means you take responsibility for every part of it. You don't leave it to chance. You don't blame circumstances. You don't wait for luck. You sit down with discipline and you map it out. You say, this is the kind of person I want to become. This is the kind of family I want to build. This is the kind of wealth I want to create. This is the kind of contribution I want to make. And then you go to work on it every single day. Just like an architect draws up a blueprint before a house is built, you draw up the blueprint before your life is built. And once the blueprint is clear, every day becomes a construction project. Every hour becomes an investment in the design. And here's the wonderful part. You don't have to wish for fewer problems when you've got a life design. You don't have to hope for an easier road. You don't have to beg the world to give you a break. Because the design itself makes you strong. The design gives you purpose. The design gives you a reason to bear the weight of discipline. Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. Don't wish for fewer problems. Wish for more skills. Don't wish for less challenge. Wish for more wisdom. That's the mindset of a designer, not just a drifter. The drifter looks for comfort. The designer looks for growth. The drifter waits for luck. The designer works with discipline. The drifter makes a living. The designer creates a life. And here's what else discipline will teach you. Freedom. Most people think discipline is a prison. They think rules, restrictions, sacrifice. But the opposite is true. Neglect is the real prison. Neglect of health, neglect of finances, neglect of goals, neglect of relationships. That's what traps people. Discipline is what sets you free. When you discipline yourself to save, you're free from debt. When you discipline yourself to study, you're free from ignorance. When you discipline yourself to work hard, you're free from poverty. And when you discipline yourself to design your life, you're free from regret. Discipline is the price of freedom, and freedom is the reward of discipline. So let me ask you, what's your design? What does your life look like on paper? If I came into your home, would I find a plan, a journal, a written vision of what you want your days, your years, your legacy to become? Or would I just find a stack of bills and a pile of excuses? Because if you don't put it on paper, it's not real. It's just a wish. But once you write it down, once you design it, once you commit to it, then life begins to shift. You begin to notice opportunities you missed before. You begin to say no to things that don't fit. You begin to say yes to things that move you forward. And slowly but surely the design takes shape. And that brings me to a challenge. Don't just design your next weekend. Don't just design your next vacation. Design your whole life. Start now. Take the time to decide what you really want. And then let discipline turn that design into reality. Because one day, whether you like it or not, your life will be the sum of your choices, your disciplines, your design. And if you've let the minors run the show, you'll end up broke, disappointed, and wondering what happened. But if you've given major time to major things, if you've sown wisely, if you've built discipline, then your life will stand as proof that a human being can rise above circumstance, can rise above excuses, and can create something extraordinary. So the real question is, will you keep giving major time to minor things? Or will you finally pick up the pen, draw the blueprint, and build a life that's truly yours? Because that decision made today can mark the turning point that changes everything. So now, as we bring this message to a close, let's look back at what we've covered. We started by talking about the trap of busyness, how so many people confuse activity with achievement. They fill their days with motion, but motion without direction leads nowhere. Then we explored the psychology of small things, how the minors whisper to us with comfort, while the majors stand waiting with discipline. We talked about the power of majors, your philosophy, your skills, your goals, your associations, the things that multiply your future. We looked at the law of sowing and reaping, how life pays back exactly what you plant, later than you plant, and always more than you plant. And finally, we came to the foundation of it all, discipline. the bridge between goals and accomplishment, the secret to not just making a living, but designing a life. That's the journey we've walked together. And here's the truth. You can't hear these words and stay the same. You either decide to keep going as you were, giving major time to minor things, or you decide to make the shift from activity to achievement, the shift from neglect to discipline, the shift from drifting to designing. Because no one drifts into fortune, no one drifts into excellence, no one drifts into happiness. Those things are built, and they're built on purpose. So let me give you this affirmation. Give major time to major things. Protect your hours like they are treasure, because they are. Turn small daily disciplines into the seeds of fortune, into the seeds of wisdom, into the seeds of happiness. Don't let neglect write your story. Don't let the minors steal your destiny. You've only got this one life. Make it a masterpiece, not a mess. And let me give you a challenge. Tonight, not tomorrow, not next week, tonight sit down with a sheet of paper and write down one major thing you've been neglecting. Just one. Don't overwhelm yourself. One major thing. Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's your finances. Maybe it's your relationships. Maybe it's your skills. Whatever it is, write it down. And then tomorrow, give it the first hour of your day. Not the scraps, not the leftovers, the first hour. And if you do that, if you give just one major thing the best of your attention, you'll feel the shift. You'll feel the law beginning to work in your favor. And you'll know deep down that this was the moment it began to change. Now, before we part, I want to leave you with one last open door. Because even if you focus on the majors, even if you discipline yourself, there's still one bridge. Most people never cross the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Most people set goals. Few ever reach them. And in my next lesson, I want to show you exactly why that is and how you can cross that bridge once and for all. So don't stop here. Don't let this be just another good talk you heard and then forgot. Click here and watch my next video. Because what I'm going to share with you, there just might be the key that unlocks everything you've been working for. And I promise you this, once you cross that bridge, nothing will ever look the same again.